It's a chair from Jim.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
This is serves right here.
There's one over
But we
there.
got a chair for Brent.
There's one right by the top right.
And you guys know that Robert Cruz was through
Does
this.
this keyboard disconnects? It will flip off like
Kathleen told
mine.
me that he was considering.
He was
He
what?
did yesterday.
Robert.
He withdrew his.
And my money would
Okay.
be on dead battery.
Kathleen,
I
this
just
is
charged my
I'm willing to,
Man.
here.
Madam.
Is that?
I brought my laptop and my iPad. I'm borrowing them.
Hi,
How are you,
Christina,
Ryan?
how are you doing?
Not that great right now,
How come?
because my computer won't start.
I don't worry about it.
No, you don't understand.
I love my life on my computer. I cannot have it
She has
start.
such a wonderful memory, you don't. Right? Ah,
No problem, Christina. You don't need a computer.
I cannot get it.
From memory.
Is it a power issue? I just have been, I was home working on it. I turned it off, put it in my bag, came here in the last 30 minutes, turned it, and it won't turn
And
back
it's
on.
not overheated.
Oh. Oh, there. Oh,
Maybe your charger wasn't plugged in.
what
at home
is this
yet.
though?
Yeah.
What is this though? This is not where I need to be. Wait, exit out of that?
That was my problem.
What is this?
You put me on a Windows machine, I'm gonna get it.
No, yeah.
So, for the
Right.
battery
Right,
runs
the
and
most
everything.
qualified, probably.
Should start. There you go.
Okay, Ryan, I'm not hooked to Wi-Fi.
Hey,
I'm gonna
Todd,
figure this out.
just a thought on the minutes.
Electricity, Wi-Fi.
We have a public hearing. I'm just looking at last month. When we don't have any public comment, we should just say there were no public comments.
Okay.
I mean, it's either Ryan or Scarlett or yourself, or someone gets up and
Yeah.
Access to
Introductions.
Wi-Fi.
and then they ask for comment.
There we go.
So did you get back yesterday, Josh, or this morning?
We in? Sure did. Thank you. Appreciate that. Probably gone a lot.
You've been gone a lot for a long time.
I remember when I got back. Yeah, they tested that.
Good for you.
Yeah, I flew back yesterday morning.
Was it hot?
Oh my gosh,
It was so
it
hot.
was so
Couldn't
humid.
even breathe.
It was so humid.
Where?
North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
93% humidity. Last day. I like that here. I like the dry heat.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the temperature, it's hotter here, but the humidity just makes it so
Makes
you
it
can't
so
even
much
breathe.
hotter. It's so weird.
So last time we were here, I understand taking breaks and we need a break. And I appreciated that break. Next time we need to look at the agenda
I'm trying to open the
and
agenda.
see, because we just made those people that had that teeny little agenda item sit through our long break. And we could have just got it over with that fast. So let's look at that.
We
next
change
time.
the order of the agenda on sometimes, like if we have guests.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
And
Makes sense to me.
with the council's approval, we rearrange
I
things.
still don't understand why we don't have staff reports at the end of our council meetings.
We used to.
I prefer that.
I'd prefer it too.
Well, that way we could take a break. Staff reports, and reports.
Most of the
If
time, the
needed.
visitors are not here to hear staff reports.
Well, they can stay if they want. Because they
think a lot
should
of them
maybe
wanna get
stay
their-
for council reports
They want to be here for the public hearing.
for the reason that, I don't know. I feel like if they're here for the whole meeting, they're probably gonna stay. If, like Hal, he's gonna stay.
So we changed for some reason, I'm not sure I remember.
So I would recommend.
I think it was so the staff didn't have to stay the whole time, right? Is that something? Am I
Mostly
misremembering?
for the city engineer.
Yeah, I'm in favor of
So-
City engineer.
So that when the city engineer was going to come and report, he didn't have to stay the whole time.
We don't have, no city engineer. no crew.
I think it should be changed.
Madam Mayor?
So now, you can click on that, it'll bring you right to this site.
Bless your heart.
That'll make it easy for you.
Well, one day in Scottsdale, Mason, we were driving through 100.
Did it so the thermometer was packed.
Well, no, it was, that was my thermometer there on the car. How you doing? Good. How you doing, man? Good. But Dan, you keep telling me I need to get more involved. Here to watch you.
How are you two now? So easy. It's way better than the 2 weeks prior to my whole bladder surgery. I was gonna die.
You thought you were gonna get it. Right?
Relatives
Yeah.
down there. Go down to areas.
We're ready? Shall we go ahead and get started? Just shortly after 6. It is July 22nd, July council meeting. All of the council members are here.
21st.
21st. What did I say?
22nd.
Unless you're planning on going into the night.
I don't know. You never know. We don't have a full house here, so if we did, we might end up being entertained. Councilmember Paulson's here. Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember Seeley. All of us are here tonight. My name is John Drew. I'm Providence City Mayor. Let's go ahead and get started. And we will begin with Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a thought of prayer for this evening. If anyone is willing to offer a thought or prayer from the audience, please raise your hand. We'll acknowledge you immediately after the pledge. Please follow me while I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone like to offer a prayer this evening or thought for? Okay, who did it last time?
Probably me.
Probably you. Okay, you want to do it this time? Sure. Okay. Councilmember Seeley will offer the prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for this beautiful valley in which we live. We're grateful for the members of our community. And we're grateful for the opportunities that we have to serve. We pray that they'll be with us this evening as we make decisions and help conduct city business and help us that we can make wise decisions that are considerate to the residents that we serve, and pray that we can be mindful of the needs around us, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. On our agenda tonight, first item is staff reports. Prior to the council meeting, some of the council members were expressing an interest in having the staff reports after the council meeting. We used to do it that way. I'm not sure why we changed. I think council member Eck mentioned that if we've got staff like our city engineer or someone we'd like to allow to go home early rather than sit around till 10 o'clock at night and going through the staff reports first, we can dispense with that and they can leave. But I haven't seen our city engineer here in a while, and all of the staff I see here tonight usually stay through the entire council meeting anyway. So when the staff reports are done, we can discuss that. I don't think we need a resolution to change that. Okay. So if that's what we want to do, and just a voice vote will be fine, and I can ask our recorder to change that for the next council meeting. But let's go ahead with the staff reports. So we have our public works director who's been busy. Come on up, Rob.
So, as far as my report goes, I guess primarily we can talk about the streets project, water project. It's been underway for a while now. The First North project is 100% complete. We've got the 3 lanes, so we've got to widen asphalt and turn arrows, and I think that's going to work really well and make life a lot safer and more convenient for a lot of travelers. And then First East, it's underway. It ran into a couple of snaggles on the south end, but we remedied those, and so it's back on track. And it should have asphalt. Probably, I hate to speculate with contractor schedules these days, they can't let me down. But Spring Creek Parkway, we'll move right on to that one, which had a delay as well. But as of today, it's about 98% complete. They just got some cleanup left to do. So it's all asphalted now.
Didn't you mean Spring Creek Road?
Did I say Parkway?
Yeah.
I think it was Lori's with the Grant Johnson's notice that she put out that has caused me to keep calling it that, which is not generally a mistake I make. But
There was a delay on their end. The grant.
kind of a loaded question delay, but
Self-imposed.
yeah. Whenever you have compromised curb and gutter and you have sprinklers that run the night before, and it basically spills off into the prepped subgrade of the road, and then you have a whole lot of traffic that's trying to get up and down it. In other words, dump trucks. Those wheel tires, they can do what's called pump the ground and work that moisture into a mush, and so you got to replace a little bit of that subgrade before you can asphalt it, which is kind of what happened. And so, long story short, in order for them to dig that little bit out in those soft spots that were created, they needed to call in blue stakes, because it's their corporate. They take blue stakes very seriously, and everybody should. But they have to wait 48 hours before digging out those soft spots that showed up.
And then are you satisfied with the way they cleaned up Canyon Road? And the rest of the city?
Satisfied is another loaded word there. That was a tough one to clean up. Whenever you've got tar like that, that's truly gooey and sticky, and it's not an easy cleanup. And you're really the only way to clean it up is not with a sweeper in any form. It's stuck, it's goo, and so you got to scrape it. And when you start talking about scraping the asphalt, then you're risking other problems with how you clean that kind of a mess up. So it was an unfortunate mess, a mistake that they made, and they acknowledged and apologized for. And when it comes to making sure that they clean it all the way completely up to my satisfaction, that's a tough one to truly get the angry eyes out, because I've seen bad things happen from cleanup with scrapers on asphalt. And so it can be a no-win situation on a cleanup like that.
But could it be cleaned up? I mean, I saw them out scraping it with a big truck, but could it be cleaned up a little bit more with a couple guys in the shovel in the back of the truck? Their guys, like there's still big pods of mess.
So I will relay that on and try to get some more and better cleanup done. And maybe I don't even necessarily need to do that, because when I said 98% complete, Spring Creek Road, the cleanup detail is the part that I was told that they've got more to do. And to what degree their version of that final cleanup detail, maybe because she did tell me that they're not exactly sure when, but this was today. They're going to get back and try to do the remainder cleanup detail on the Spring Creek Road project. So I'll just follow up with them and see what that really entailed in their mind, and try to give them an extra booster to go the extra mile and do some better manpower cleanup.
How much of that leftover product do you think will naturally wear back into the roads with traffic?
Yeah, over time it'll clean itself up.
They'll be safe.
The fact that we don't have any rain doesn't really help that factor, but
Some of it will be mitigated that way.
Come winter or snow plows, they'll make a dent in it as well. But with the preventative maintenance that we put on roads like Canyon Road, I hate to see them scrape it too much because it can really damage that sealer that we put on there. And so, like I say, it's kind of a catch-22 on how hard you really want them to clean that right up. But when it comes to manpower, square mouth shovels, and idle on with the backhoe, just try to do a better job. That's the direction I'll try to lean towards.
Who was the contractor? Was it subcontractor? I feel like it's worthwhile.
The
to
Grand
name.
Johnsons. The Grand Johnsons. They're the ones that were involved in all of that road. As far as the rest of the downtown road projects, they started the second south water main yesterday and ended up moving to first east to help that crew out a little bit today, but they'll be back tomorrow. And so we'll see first, second south get totally tore up over the next couple of weeks. So I think they're going to maybe mobilize a second crew to do water services, and which we're redoing all the old galvanized water services on all the other blocks downtown. So there'll be parts of water construction all over downtown. So that should start tore up and road rage real soon. We can move to the final thing I'd like to talk about, the drought. So I guess I should start stating thanks to everybody who's done their part. It comes to trying to follow any kind of recommendations when it comes to slow the flow. Because a lot of cities are struggling in a lot of ways. And so I've heard a lot of different stories, and those stories can be a little upsetting. There's an agency known as Rural Water Association, who's got crews going from well to well all across Utah and taking drawdown levels, truly watching what the aquifers are doing. And so if for whatever reason this coming winter snowpack doesn't help give us the boost that we need for next year, I cringe to think what the mitigation type strategies we need for next year. So we need to do our part to conserve.
Do you know what the recharge is for an aquifer though? Is it one? It seems like snowpack might affect 2 or 3 year recharges for aquifers, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, hydrology when it comes to the aquifer stuff's not my forte, but I do know that from what I hear, the rumors, I haven't seen data myself, but that the aquifers are depleting in a way that's very alarming. And so a lot of municipal and private wells have struggled or dried up.
So other cities, like Pepper, for example, they're allowing people to water maybe 1 day a week. I've got a neighbor who I think waters 3 times a day.
Christina, your mic isn't in front of you. You're not.
Oh, there we go. At what point do you, as a city, start mandating watering? I mean, we've asked nicely.
Well, I'll just state that even though if you look at our usage totals, Providence City's daily usage totals, it looks like we're using as much or more than usual. Although I have no doubt with the dry factor and the heat wave that we've been witnessing, that our numbers would be very much significantly higher right now without the drought. So therefore, I think a lot of people are doing their part. I think, it's hard to want to throw out restrictions if you can, weather the storm, so to speak, and get people to do their part. It's generally the best way to go to start with, unless your water system is truly, struggling or has that large potential to struggle. We're getting through ours. So, I would definitely throw up a red flag if needed. If I start truly having worries like we've seen other cities have. So for now, I think we're trying to weather the storm and hope that the storm comes. Our current storm being the heat wave. Mayor?
Couple things on water we might consider. When we get closer to when we're drafting the newsletter, a couple things. The council's talked about smart meters in the past. We can get them inexpensively and get our residents to use them. And Brent Speth, who's on our council, was promoting that. We didn't get any further than the discussion. The other thing is that what I've done is there are some things you can put on your lawn that help hold the water better. Mark Anderson can talk about it. Everybody knows what Mark Anderson is. There's this product called Hydrotain, and we've got parts of our grass that are yellow. And I put this stuff down. It's called soft soil because it's clay. And so now it's starting to green up. So you can put stuff down on your grass and use significantly less water. So I'm watering every 4 days. And I've got yellow, but it's okay and it's surviving. But I mean, we could invite people to contribute, outside sources and talk about things like smart meters, and talk about applications on your lawn.
So the smart controllers on sprinklers is a really good idea. It doesn't work real great yet. The fiber optics that we're putting through town might help change that factor for Providence City as a whole, since Wi-Fi is generally not necessary for your controller clocks to tie into some of those smart capabilities. We have like the city office, it's a public works facility that are Wi-Fi capable, but for the typical residents, they make a lot of sense. And I know a few people don't. You have one? Oh,
I
I
have
was your
several
neighbor.
of them. Yeah.
Okay. Brent Freeze used to sit in that spot. He definitely had it because he pushed me to do a lot of homework and research once, and they're great, no doubt about it.
I was just wondering the water thing. I don't want to have this be a tangent, but maybe it's worth a discussion later. But our current policy for new construction with fee and lieu versus bringing water, I'm kind of wondering at some point in time if it might make sense to kind of require water to be brought. It just strikes me as interesting. We charge a fee and lieu, because a developer can't go out and get water shares, which makes me think, are we even charging market rate for those water shares if they can't go out and buy them on the market? And I do think as we grow as a city, you're talking about next year. I'm trying to think, if we have persistent drought for 10 or 20 years, like they talk about, we're going to do a very, very different system, and I think as we build out Providence, we might want to make sure that we have water for the building out that we're doing. So
Yeah. So we're about it's on our agenda tonight to talk about the water
That's
master
right.
plan. So that's hopefully going to give us some wonderful guidance towards lots of things like that.
There's some things people can do inside their home to help really conserve water. If you haven't got a 2.5 gallon shower head, you ought to change your shower heads immediately. Put them down so you're not flooding everything. If you can, an RV has a shut-off valve on the shower. You wet yourself down, shut the shower off, soak down, turn it on, rinse yourself off, and you're out of the shower. There's things you can do to conserve water inside your home. If you don't have a low flush toilet, you got to really consider. And there's a lot of homes that don't. We ought to consider that because there's just things that can be done. If you're brushing your teeth, put your toothbrush down, shut your water off, brush your teeth, turn it back on, rinse your mouth out, shut it off again. A lot of people let their water run while they're brushing their teeth. And it's just being water wise. And we need to do that.
Get that mindset in you on what the drought really means, what it could mean. Getting everybody's mindset towards those mitigation strategies and repercussions that we could see.
I just add that one that's more removed that a lot of people don't realize, but 70 to 80% of water goes for agricultural needs. I mean, it's not brushing your teeth, it's agriculture. So if you really want to make a dent, the food choices that we make that use less water, less simpering, those have a 10x, 100x, effect rather than, brushing your teeth and things of that sort. So,
Well, Josh, I'm talking the city. We don't have a lot of agriculture being done here within Providence City.
yeah, we're just not the only people that are experiencing a drought throughout the country,
I'm talking about our community.
Yeah.
What we can do in our community. Because we can't control outside of our community, but we can teach and train and help people inside our community to conserve water. And that's my point is there's ways that we can help conserve water within the community.
Yeah, it's like you both are saying, there's a lot of ways that Providence can help the state for that matter when it comes right down to it. There's lots of waterways things to do for landscaping and for vegetation and indoor water use. So I just want to help get the word out, and I guess spreading thanks usually helps. I mean, tell your neighbors thanks if you notice that their lawn is looking a little crispy. And when people don't generally like seeing grass next door to theirs crispy, if theirs is nice and green, and so therefore they can get a little upset. So I would just try to encourage that drought mindset for conservation.
This year, the crispy lawn is a badge of honor.
That's all I have, unless you have any other.
One quick question. I won't keep us going too late. First North, we did one block. We did improve the shoulder, but we have a crown. And when you drive over it, there's the crown, and then the edge comes like that. So the crown is tapered, which is a county road. They maintain the middle of it, and we improved the side of it. They kind of don't match, so you drive over it. The car's doing this. So next time the county comes out, I know they chip and seal last time. Is there any way they can improve that?
Last time they actually did that overlay.
Because it doesn't feel like a new road that we just spent a lot of money to fix.
Yeah, I would assume that on our preventative maintenance plan next year, whether we pay or whether we partner with the county or we persuade the county or maybe the county will just do it. They're on a rotation as well. And it's been a while since the county actually chip sealed their roads. They did that overlay about 3 years ago, maybe 4. So, and where we're doing new asphalt, that is generally most agencies' plan is to get it sealed or preventative maintenance measure of some kind within the first year or so.
Okay.
So I'll look into that.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Kai, you have anything for us? You want to share?
Yeah, just a quick few things.
Can we see your
Will
recorder?
you do me a favor on the agenda?
Yes,
You add your name
on the agenda.
under staff report.
Oh, yes. It sounds like most of you know, Robert Cruz has dropped out of the running for mayor. Also, you all should have received an email on Monday from me about the referendum title. Our city attorney, Chad, drafted that. You have until Tuesday to give me any of your comments and I'll let him know. And he'll draft the final title for us and I'll give you guys the final title. So far, we haven't had any objections, no comments that would have us change it. So, but you do have till Tuesday, so let me know. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte?
So we've been kind of busy in the land use side of things. We've got 20 active applications right now. 2 of them are open annexation. Well, one of them's the open annexation. The other one, we're finishing up the boundary line adjustment between Millville and Providence over on the south end of 200 West. Ties followed up with the lieutenant or with Millville. And since they were a little bit behind us in their meeting schedules, they sent everything down to the lieutenant governor's office, right? So we're just waiting for the lieutenant governor's office to certify that, and then that will be done. We've got 3 open rezones. We've got 12 open developments that range from pretty significant size, well, pretty good size to very small. We've got a couple of 3-lot developments, and so and our vacation of our right of way is still open. We've got to finish getting the plat from them, excuse me, so we can get that recorded and taken care of. And we've got it down to 2 conditional use permits on building permits in sensitive areas. So we have been quite busy. One of the things we are doing with those couple of big developments, Ryan and Rob, but particularly Ryan, has talked to them. You'll be talking about the water master plan tonight. We've kind of put their stuff on hold a little bit until we can get the water master plan to see just exactly what's going to be required, how they can help us improve the system to meet their needs and that type of thing. So I'm looking forward to that water master plan being in place. On the recreation side of things, we had 2 teams mostly made up of Providence kids that played in the All-Star games. Unfortunately, neither one of those teams made it to the point that they could go to California, but they had a lot of fun. And so the softball and baseball recreation are over for this year. The wiffle ball is going strong. It got off to a slow start as far as kids registering, but they're down there playing, and we ended up quite a few little teams, and they seem to be having a lot of fun. We are in our summer field maintenance, so the fields are closed for the rest of the month, except for the wiffle ball games and when the Wolverines play their games. And the historic, or before you go to there, we've got the movie in the park coming up in August in Vaughn's Park. It's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on August 20th. And then also in Vaughn's Park, it's not us that's doing it, but I think it's worth a mention. The Stokes Nature Center does a summer concert series, and they usually do it up by, I can't remember, is it First Dam or?
Up Logan Canyon that way.
Anyway, and they haven't been able to do it up there this year. And so they are doing it at Vaughn's Park. And they are not quite as, it's fun, but they do charge admission. So they had one in June, and they actually have 5 more scheduled. They've got 3 in August and 2 in September. August 6th, August 21st, August 28th, September 3rd, and September 11th. So if someone is asking you about the concerts in Vaughn's Park, Von Bear Park, yes, there are concerts going on in Von Bear Park, but it is Stokes Nature Center Canyon Concert Series. It's not Providence City sponsoring those. But they've been, it sounds like, listening to people talk, it sounds like they've been, that first one was probably pretty well received. And then our Historic Preservation Commission, they're reactivating again a little bit this year since the USU's opened up more and things like that. And what they're going to, they're still finishing up working with Utah State University on, it's actually a project similar to what they did on the railroads, only it's on water. It's on the irrigation companies in Providence. The history of secondary water in Providence is what they're working on now. And along with that, along with the railroad project, and they put up a sign over by over by the Small Pavilion in Zollinger Park to commemorate, that's where the railroad depot used to be long ago and far away, to commemorate the railroad that ran through Providence for a bit. Thank you to Kathleen Alder's group, Providence Pioneer Heritage Incorporated. They're a nonprofit group that was organized to help the Providence Historic Preservation Commission with projects that qualify. And they're going to do more of those commemorative signs. Their next meeting that they will be talking about are different locations. They're going to utilize our Park and Rec plan to try and work within that framework and improve our park signage and put some history with it as well. So they've got quite an ambitious project that they want to move forward with, and we'll keep you posted on that. So that's pretty much everything. Unless you have questions.
Thanks, Scarlett. I have had lots of residents reach out to me personally and say they're really glad to have the concert in the park start up again. You know,
Yeah, and we just had ours last Friday. Yeah, it was the Down Yonder, and the bleach bonds are coming back in September. We'll skip August because we're doing the movie in the park, but they'll be back in September, and then our car show Shania's planning and working on that. And so we'll have that and the band in October. So, and then we'll get ready for the tree. And in the meantime, we'll really hope that the rains come, but mostly we'll hope for good snow. I was listening to a thing that talked about how important snowpack really is for the aquifers because of as it melts, the rain kind of runs off snowpack, it melts down in. So we really do need to work for snow in the future. So thank you, everybody.
Right. I'm going to do a few things from here so I can show you on the screen, and then I'll move up there. But one thing, River Heights contacted me and wanted to know. I'm going to bring this up here so you can all see it. River Heights is working at a park north of the cemetery, and they would like to connect their trails onto our road there so that they can both go through here and then into the cemetery for walking. At that point, I visited with staff. Other than adding a gate and a few things, I think that at that point the staff is all right with a connection, but I wanted to come to the council and see if there was any concern with having some connection from River Heights Park that they're going to put in, to see if you have any opposition with that.
We're running out of cemetery space.
Amen.
At this point, this is what they're proposing for their space. We have talked to see if a cemetery may be a future possibility. They are leaving it as open space, and at that point, it's maybe someday for a cemetery spot, but not at this point. So anyway, that's where this is. So it just kind of a nod from the council if you're okay, if you have any problems with them connecting there.
have to build a wall then with gates or fencing.
At that point, any of the fencing or any of the change there, that would be on them.
Isn't there already a fence?
I think there's already a fence. There's a fence already. So, but if there's any change that way, they're proposing to connect into two places so that they can have that walking path and then connect into the
I
walking.
just wonder how much parking is gonna happen along our cemetery road to access their park, because they have very little parking and their road doesn't even go through or to, I guess. I'm just wondering, because that road on the north side of the cemetery is pretty narrow. That's where I park to visit my relatives. I mean, I'm just wondering if that'll be an issue
So they're
if
River
we
Heights,
provide access with a gate.
the River Heights Council complains that if there was a gate or access on the other side, that people attending a funeral would park in River Heights in their neighborhood. So their concern is that people attending a Providence cemetery event, funeral, whatever.
Or a River Heights Cemetery event.
So there are two problems. One, they're concerned about parking on their side, we're concerned about parking on our side, so maybe we hadn't done it.
So maybe
So maybe we just
maybe
don't
their
put an
council has
access
got to
there.
pass that. So.
And if we put in a gate and we could have a lock on it, so that if it becomes a problem, that gates and fences are helpful for good neighbors.
Looks
So
like they've got 10 parking spaces. So they might complain.
7 over
someone
here and
shows up for a
14 over
funeral
here.
and takes those parking spaces.
And they will.
So,
I would think that they should understand that half of those residents are River Heights residents in those plots, but they have some sort of understanding and agreement between them. They won't be so nitpicky about parking.
Do they have a cemetery or do they strictly use Providence?
They don't have a
Cemetery?
cemetery. They,
So Providence Cemetery is their cemetery, but we pay for it.
It's actually in the county, isn't it? It's actually in the county, isn't it?
But it's.
I think it's in River Heights.
It's in River Heights.
I think it's-
city owned.
Is it?
It's city-owned land, but it's county, it's
It
on
is
a
in county?
piece of unincorporated,
It's unincorporated.
completely surrounded by River Heights City, but it is on a piece of unincorporated, yes.
But we pay to maintain it but we also charge for plots, but we are running out of plots. I was hoping that they would extend the cemetery to that area.
You could
This
show up
point
at
is-
their council meeting and during the public comment portion, ask to express your interest.
The one connecting street there in the middle, it is quite narrow in asphalt as the north-south street.
So this would be a walking path, not a street.
Well, but.
Ours is a street, right?
Ours is a street, and park there. And if they start parking there to go out and do the walking, not everybody's within walking distance. What kind of problems does that cause? See, and that there, you can't, I mean, they got relative small amount of parking. But if theirs is full, you pull in a Providence Cemetery, pull off on the edge of the grass, where a lot of your, one side of your car's on the grass, and you go out and do your walking. I don't think that's a good benefit for us.
I sense that we don't have a desire for them to have connections.
No.
I will pass that word back to them.
Oh, I just feel like there should be, that they should care about the cemetery. And it feels a little disrespectful that they don't appear
Besides that,
to.
why would, you know what? You said respect. It's the cemetery. Let's just keep it the cemetery. Let's not have parking. Let's not have, I don't think they need to connect.
Most of our parking now is very temporary. It's on the
Yeah.
line, there's a grade was within a short walk of that, and then they come back to their vehicles and go on. I can see this not being the case with walking paths and gatherings and stuff.
It just seems a little noisy to be next to a cemetery where there'll be services. It just doesn't seem like a respectful thing, especially when we're critically short in cemetery plots. But
Maybe they see it as a place to expand the reach of their limited space they have for park.
Yeah, maybe when they expand the cemetery, we could go ahead and expand it over there.
We've had discussions over the years about acquiring that space, and it's gone back and forth and back and forth. Never got anywhere.
All right. One other one I wanted to report on is we have talked and we've had our sewer master plan has been completed. This is a kind of an addition to that. We had them install 4 additional meters throughout our city in order to identify where I might be coming from. And I just kind of talk on this map to kind of give you an idea of what they did and what some of the results were. We have up here our master meters that are between us and Logan, and then we blow our sewer into Logan. We have sites 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we put additional meters in to track, and you can see that all of what is colored went and going into that meter. So you'll see that, and I can't, whether this is gold, kind of a light green, kind of a pink and a blue. You can see the areas that it covered. And so then we looked at the volume that was coming from those. Each one of those correlates here. Although they have spikes and dips, generally speaking, each of those meters maintain consistent through our period of time that we were evaluating. So, and what was concluded by the study was there is a increase in flow during that period of time, that month of monitoring, but it didn't come from those areas. So if I come back to the map, the conclusion would be that the areas in gray that are not colored, the areas in gray that flow through the meters, but didn't come through one of those temporary meters, primarily our historical downtown and some of our business area, they saw a rise in flow during that period of time, and so at that point the conclusion was, and then we saw these lines, vertical lines, are dates of what events occurred. So we can see when Blacksmith Fork irrigation turned on, when Spring Creek irrigation turned on, and so Spring Creek here, we still see it fairly level. There's a little, but the minute Blacksmith Fork comes on, we can see that there is a rise. And so we're assuming, based on the conclusions, that there's an infiltration from our Blacksmith sewer, or Blacksmith irrigation water into the sewer system. So as show and tell, I've brought a sewer cleanout. Unused. There was only one on YouTube. He can hear me, and but I probably could turn that camera. But camera adds 10 pounds, and I already have too many. So, so your sewer line comes up, and what there will be is it will go down wide and come out. And what they're used for is to be able to clean out the sewer. If anything gets trapped down there, you can use this instead of going into your house. You can use a sewer clean out. Obviously, it goes all the way down the sewer. So you put a cap on top to keep it. There's two types of caps. One that's a direct cap, or there's ones that have a screw lid. And what we're asking people is just to go and find where your sewer cleanout is at your house and make sure that the top hasn't been broken. And that especially if you're flood irrigating, that if that top is broken, then you'll see that water can flow right down there. So while we're already in a drought, it adds taking that water, putting it down the sewer, and then we pay to treat that. So
that's not the only way it's getting. I mean, it can come down through the grates in the streets or anything else.
It can come through other avenues, but this is one of the avenues, and it's one that's an easy fix. This is an easy fix. The residents, if they'll just look at what they've got and look to see, that is an easy one. Some of the other ones, if the pipe is cracked, if it's been bent and cracked as it goes down, a lot harder to find. If people are flood irrigating over top of manholes, those manholes have holes, so the gas can get out from the sewer, but it does allow the water to go in. So in a storm event, those are things we can't fix. They'll come through those holes, and the design of that happens. But if there's a flood irrigating and they're irrigating over top of any of those sewer manholes, then that water will seep through. But this is one that we're just saying, hey, take a look at your own. Everybody should know where theirs is. I would encourage everybody to know where the sewer manhole is for a couple of reasons. What if you ever had a backup at your house? You'll want to know where it's at. So you can have it cleaned out through that. Every house should have one. And generally, if you have over 150 feet from your house, from your clean out to the road, you may have a second one. So anyway, just kind of an opportunity to take a look and help as we look at potential costs and potential things coming into the system.
So after we talked, I went out and found out what it was. And mine has an invert on the top of the cap. So that instead of being sticking up, it has an invert where it drops down in.
Similar, I mean, something.
Yeah. Open it up. Those with the square top are sometimes problematic for lawnmowers or driving over them or something like that. They're great. With the invert, they're a flat top, just has a groove in the top. You can still use a wrench. You have to put the wrench in sideways. I mean, it's not a connection core wrench or a large screwdriver or whatever. But a lot of people don't realize that most of the time we do have a clean out at property line. And I think, isn't that the case, Rob? We got to clean out right at property line.
It used to be, I think, kind of a standard normal. But discourage that unless it's a long sewer lateral. So in other words, those are usually the problematic cleanouts. So if you have one at your foundation and you're less than 100 feet, then it's better not to have one, because that's usually, in my experience, in 25 whatever years, that sewer basements that back up quite often are related to that cleanout that's by the property line being broken or somehow damaged, lost, and something blocks that connection. So I've gotten away from requiring them at property lines unless there's a reason for it, such as over 100 feet, or there's a lot of 45s in that area, depending on the design.
In the subdivider, when he goes through a subdivision, we stub it lateral in, and then he brings a clean out up to the surface of property line so that when they build the home, they'll know the location of the sewer. Sometimes they stick a tuba bore down there, but I observed the ones on First North, those homes had a clean out. Well, the one home for sure had a clean out right at property line, as well as one back on, at the house. And
there is many in Providence with cleanouts on the property.
My only point is that sometimes people are not aware of them. They drive their cars or vehicles, whatever, lawnmowers over them, and they're broken. And sometimes the pipe, if they drive over it, cracks, like you just said. And then whether you're watering your lawn any which way, you get water in them.
Wasn't very long ago, I responded to somebody who had this very broken cap lodged in a wide connection directly underneath this cleanout, which was what flooded their whole basement. So
I have two questions. One, is there information like on the GIS system, or is there a way to like figure out
if
where?
you don't know where yours are, can't find them, or you'd like to make sure you got 3 versus 1 cleanout in your property, contact us. We have records now, depending on who drew the map and what year it was, and many different variables. Some maps we have are a little rough around the edges when it comes to even knowing which way north, south, east, and west is. But a lot of maps we have are really great, and we can hopefully help you find those.
Well,
Who they ask for it?
You can ask for me, and I'll delegate it more.
so the other question is, since there seems to be a direct link between Blacksmith Fork and infiltration, I'm wondering if there's a way to create accountability for the Blacksmith Fork shareholders to report that they've checked. Because it's really easy to say everyone check and people to say, okay, but like a deadline and like a return and report seems appropriate.
So we contacted the president of Blacksmith Fork.
Who is here?
Yes, who's here, and visited with her about our finding. And I believe they're working on communication methods, so they have digital communication. She can talk more on that if she'd like. But we reached out early as we got the results to see what we could do to help be partners into that. So anyway, I don't know if you have anything.
The secretary right now is calling everyone that is between 2nd West and 3rd East and 2nd or 3rd North and 3rd South. And to those water users that we have now, not everybody has shares that are, you know, within in that area, but we're going to either text them or email them, and we will require them to call us back or to get back with us and say, yes, I've checked and it's okay. So
Does that include just shareholders or people that might be leasing shares?
anyone whose address that we send a schedule to, so it will be all of those people.
I've got 2 questions, Ryan. One's more of an idea regarding these caps. Would it make financial sense? Because it's always difficult to motivate people to do things, you know. Would it?
We'll provide the caps.
That's what I'm saying. That's my question. We provide the caps, you find it, we'll run a cap. We save money.
We'll provide the cap. If there's a broken one and you need one, although they should be fairly easy to find, if not.
Perfect. So I don't discount that's the case, but I just want to look at this data and make sure I understand this correctly. Our water for Spring Creek, I think, turns on in April-ish, if I recall.
So you'll see there's a line earlier on when Spring Creek turns on.
Okay. When does Blacksmith Fork turn on?
May 1st.
May 1st. I've just, because in my mind, this is correlation and not necessarily causation here. So I just want to make sure there's nothing else going on.
We're looking at other.
I'm wondering if May is a particularly wet year, you know, and there could be infiltration just from the wet month, just from the other moisture.
There is effects from storm events, but you'll see that the trend line rises, and we haven't seen the trend line of water.
Well, it tends to rise and then it tends to sustain from what I see, right? It rises there and then it is relatively level.
Well, you'll see that this rises at a consistent rise. Others, you're right.
And what are the other? And what are the others then?
These other ones are individual meters. This is the sum total of those 4 meters. It's the gap that rises in between. It's the gap that rises in between those that we're looking at. That is the.
Well, sure, but the meters account for water we've put into the system. The meters are the input. Is that what you're saying? These are sewer meters, water.
These are sewer meters.
Okay.
So we've broken the area kind of up into 5 zones, 4 with meters, and a 5th that says we know how much we flow to Logan. We minus the 4 areas in which we had individual meters, and we have a 5th that we've said, okay, if it's not in here, it must be in here. And so we're trying to isolate that back. It's kind of a negative area rather than the knowing and tracking that sewer meters in those 4 areas, which we track to eliminate. And that's what we're eliminating. Because they have spots, but they're fairly level throughout the amount of time. So we said, okay, well, it's not being shown in the 4 areas we had sewer meters on, temporary meters.
And that's why you think it's Blacksmith Fork, is because it's localized.
Then we're trying to localize it down. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So not to throw them under the bus.
If it's a storm event, we would see that same influx in all those other areas.
Correct.
People in that area are the ones who flood irrigate. So the stuff that's
Yeah,
around
I was just trying to figure out
they don't.
what we kind of used as a control group, what you're using as the control were the other zones, and then look at Blacksmith Fork.
I will wrap up. Just a couple other things, so that you're aware. We will talk about our water master plan tonight. We did receive $45,000 of a grant towards that from the Community Impact Board, and just kind of a update with fiber, just a time frame because of the difficulty in getting some of their of the supplies because of the supply shortages that are going on. We are expecting that our first customer may be on by October 1st, kind of that frame. We'll have August. We'll be installing our hut. So September we'll be finishing blowing in some fiber. We'll probably have our first expected in that October 1st range. Phase 1, which is zone 2, but phase 1, we're kind of expecting that'll probably be all up and running by Thanksgiving. And the second phase, which is this south bench, we're looking at being fully up and running by probably Christmas. So that's kind of our current time frame. And if we get more supplies and can run more Cruz, then that might accelerate that. But that's kind of the time frame on those.
At that rate, we should be done by the end of the next year.
We're hoping to move fairly quickly, but we are a little delayed in some of it. But when we finish off, anyway, we got a lot of areas to go. We do have 3 ISPs that are signed with agreements. I have at least 3 more that have initiated and reviews of those agreements. I expect that we'll probably have up to 9 on the system competing by that August date when the hut goes in. So, and just as a informational, our ARP funds were deposited today for our first tranche, and it was just over $460,000 for our ARP funds. That's the recovery for the COVID funds. That's the second thing. So anyway, other questions?
Question. Go back to the sewer infiltration. If we've got a broken cap here and it's outside above ground, obviously we're not experiencing any storm events. So there's only one plausible cause. If you're running your sprinklers, there might be some water that gets in, but it's not sizable. It has to be flood irrigation.
Depending on how much they run their sprinklers, I mean, and if it drains, I would say that flood irrigation obviously would contribute faster.
That's good to have some leads.
But at some point, I mean, at any will help. I mean, we pay for all of it that goes there. So
but the other thing is, and we know we have dirt canals, and we know we lose due to evaporation and seepage. In our house, which was built in '72, we have a clean out in the laundry room. That's about 12 inches above the basement floor. We probably have sump pumps in the older part of town. We don't have a sump pump for whatever reason.
We very well might, and that is something that is possible at this point, because the spike occurs so quickly after the entry of the secondary water. You would expect that it would take some time after that charging of the system for the water to seep that. But if it's naturally high groundwater, absolutely, we could still have that. That's not off the table. If anybody's doing that, they shouldn't discharge it in their house. So, but obviously there's all kinds of possibilities. We're just trying to identify what possibilities there are and help educate the public.
I think Rob knows we have springs in the older part of town, in some parts as well, that Blacksmith Fork serves. Source of infiltration and headaches for Rob over the years.
Sure, absolutely. And I think we've worked on some of those and we continue to inspect those. So, yeah.
I talked to Brian today about the possibility of looking at the time frame that water came into the system, and then looking at the who was irrigating during that time frame. And that's pretty vague, pretty tough to do. But
there is a lag in some of that. Obviously we're hoping everybody will just look. I mean, it's good for you to know where your clean out is. Maybe we find a few of those But yeah, I mean, if we don't find it here and we continue to search, we'll do what we can, but a lot more eyes is helpful. So if you can just look on your own, it's helpful. So yeah. Other questions for me?
Thanks, Ryan. So, council, why don't we cover this right now? Want to move staff reports to the end if you want. We'll just ask Ty to change.
Yes.
Yes, Josh?
That's great.
Okay. Ty, can you change the order of the agenda so we have staff reports at the end? If we have our city attorney or city engineer here, we can certainly have them give us a report. So Max can go home. He lives in the corner, so he's got quite a drive. All right. All right. So we have the minutes to cover from June 16th council meeting. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from June 19th, 16th.
Motion from Councilmember Kirk. Second from Councilmember Sealy. Anyone find anything they want to amend, correct, change, clarify? Hearing no comments, I'll ask for a call to approve the minutes of June 16th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
I would stay there. I'll listen to yourself.
Will you abstain? Yeah. All right. Okay, public comment portion of our council meeting. Citizens may express their views to the city council on issues within the city's jurisdiction. The city council accepts comments by email to providencecityutah@gmail.com and by text 435-752-9441. And we'll ask Scarlett or our reporter if we've got any from those not in attendance, then we'll invite members of the audience to speak if they'd like to. Do you have anything, Scarlett?
It does not look like, well, just a second. No, not that I can see.
All right. No text and no email.
Text, no email.
Okay. Any member of the audience like to speak? You're welcome to come up and address an issue that's not on the current agenda. If it's on the agenda for today, when we get to that agenda item, we'll certainly invite comments from the public. So hold those comments until we get to those agenda items. If this is something that's not on today's agenda, we invite you to come forward and speak. We'll give you 3 minutes. Anyone interested? Hal, come on up. Give us your name, record.
Al Hanson, I live here in Providence for 35 years. I'd like to go back to the events leading up to the June Planning Commission and City Council meetings. That as far as the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the vote of the City Council on the Nielsen property rezone. First of all, my understanding is the builder wanted to hook on to the sewer system through the assisted living area initially and was turned down by a vote of the people down there. Then they tried to get an easement to go through Jim Nyman's property to hook up down through there, and that was denied as well, I understand. And then the builders went to the Planning Commission to apply for the zoning change of that property. The Planning Commission discussed it. They recommended to the City Council to deny the request to rezone. And then it went to the City Council. There was much debate. There was a lot of people here that voiced opinions, me among them, and the City Council went ahead and approved it. I thought in this country that Providence City elected representatives to govern according to the voice of the people that they represent. This council, with the exception of Joshua Paulson and Janelle Seeley, excuse me, didn't recognize the voice of the people, and in my opinion, the voice of the people of Providence. So I hope during the next election cycle that we elect people that will actually listen to the voice of the people and support the decisions that they make. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else like to comment? Raise your hand, the audience. Seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion and we will move on. We have 2 public hearing items. We invite members of the public. We have 2 items that we will also address on the agenda for the council to discuss and consider. Item number 2, this is a COG grant application for 100 South. COG is Cache County Council of Governments. Full disclosure, I'm the chairman of the COG this year, which doesn't mean anything. I just chair the meetings. Providence City Council will take comments and questions in regard to the city's intent to apply for a COG grant for the reconstruction of 100 South Road area. So we're asking for public comment. Ryan can give us an outline before we proceed with questions. Ryan can go through the details. We've asked for grant money in prior years. The previous year, we withdrew our application, and that application had to do with monies for acquiring right-of-way. We ran into a snag with the county council. And as a result of that discussion with the county council asked all of the cities that apply for grant money to have a public hearing in regard to their grant application. So every city is doing the same we're doing here. Brian, you want to give us just a brief outline of the application, what it involves, and how much in terms of grant dollars we're looking for?
Yeah, at this point, we're a couple of years ago, we went to the COG to apply for a grant. Last year we went, and our project didn't score high enough last year. There were a lot of good projects. We're coming back to reapply basically for the same project. Before we have done a realignment to adjust the south boundary. We are looking to put a sidewalk at least on the south side, build out the right of way we have, and so if we have the right of way, we'd build up to the right of way we have. So anyway, this is continuation of what we've done. You know, as the mayor and I talked, we said we've talked about this quite a bit. Do we use and include the last public hearing we had on this, or do we have another one? And we said, you know, it's always good to be able to open up for additional comment if there is any. And so if there's any questions, happy to have that. But I think this has been talked about quite a bit. We've communicated with most, if not all, of the residents. At least tried to communicate with all, and at least communicated with most. And so if there's anybody in the audience or that would like to comment, I'd be interested to hear. So happy to take that.
Council, any questions on it? So what we're constructing is sidewalk, curb, and gutter on the south side, partial road, 24 feet of asphalt.
Minimum of 24 with the, but we expect that all of it will be at least as much of the right of way as we can. So some of it will be as 30 to 36 is what we'll realistically keep. So
telephone poles will be moved.
Telephone poles have already been requested to be moved, and we expect them to be moved sometime in October. That's what we're getting from there. And once they're moved, then we could move forward on working on the road. But at this point, there's no construction we could do until the power lines are moved. So that's our next step, and we've already requested that of Rocky Mountain Power.
Give me any estimation on moving those power poles?
Sometime in October.
So we wouldn't be able to really get started this year.
Nope.
The grant applications are reviewed and there's a list that is sent to the county council that is recommended. County council ultimately votes. The county council typically votes sometime in November. We can't incur any costs. Anything we incur before the grant award is not eligible for grant reimbursement. So.
But even with that, even if we had it in the budget, there's nothing we could do this year.
Clarify, we do have in the budget to expect to use our funds to construct in the spring, but we can't construct this fall without the movement of the power line. So.
I'll ask members of the audience if they have any questions, comments on the grant application. Scarlett, do we have any text messages, emails?
Nothing new.
Okay. All right. Any member of the audience like to comment on the COG grant application? All right.
Is that the full 100 south? I don't know anything about it.
100 south between. Oh,
come on up here if you want to comment. You're more than welcome. State your name for the record.
Jeff Noviker. I don't know anything about the full 100 south project. So is it the full 100 south?
So it is 100 south from 200 west to the
You just
west.
candidate for.
I am. Any other questions?
It's from 200 west to the west to towards the roundabout. So on this from the county road going that way. I can bring up a picture. I have one.
Yeah, and it's a project the council wants to have done, and the people that live there.
There's a huge backstory of about 5
Okay.
years that maybe you should sit down with Ryan and get
Give me the
more
book.
than
I'll read the
5
book
years.
on one.
Make an appointment with Ryan.
Okay.
We have an appointment.
Thanks.
That's not.
I didn't see any other hands raised, so let's go ahead and close the public hearing on item number 2, the COG grant application. Move on to item number 3, sewer collection impact fee. Providence City Council will take comments and questions regarding the city's intent to establish the sewer collection impact fee for the city's wastewater master plan. This is collection system, this is not treatment. So I think when it comes to impact plan, we've got 2 sewer related impact fees. One is for collection, the other treatment.
If this is approved, then we would. At this point, we only have treatment. At this point, we only have treatment. This would be the implementation of a collection impact fee.
So the existing collection system, we have not had an impact fee, Scarlett, for a number of years.
Since 2009.
2009.
And might mention that treatment fee goes directly to Logan City. We take it in, but then we pay it every quarterly. We pay that to them.
The collection impact fee. So any comments, Scarlett, email or text?
No.
No comments from outside the meeting. Anyone in the audience like to comment on the sewer collection impact fee? The collection system is our gravity feed system here in the city. And it does not involve anything outside the city, which is treatment related.
Just one to keep in mind, our biggest one would be the line between us and Logan and upsizing that line with future connections that come on. So we would build up that to be able to pay for some of that capital improvement that we talked about with the adoption of the sewer master plan.
Scarlett, was the collection impact fee done away with because there was no project on the horizon?
Right. The collection impact fee was based on the sewer bond, because in the original 1988, the late 80s, when they planned the sewer, they pretty much planned for the interior part for build out. And so as projects came on, developers had to put their lines in. So the city had very little upsizing other than paying the excess amount, the upsize amount portion of the sewer bond. And when that bond was completed, like I said, we really didn't have another project to go to, because we weren't at a point where we needed, where the Logan was a chokehold like it was. So we knew that we would want to go across the highway at some point. We've known that for several years, but we also knew that there would be a lot of development money that goes into that as well. So until we had this newer sewer plan, we didn't have a project to charge impact. That would have been, we've done some capital projects on the sewer, a few little things, but they were not growth related or excess capacity related. They were just more of O&M type related things.
Seeing no comments from the public, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on item number 3, the sewer collection impact fee, and move on. Next 3 agenda items are land use related. This is all Scarlett's. Item number 4, ordinance 012/2021, Providence City Code 10-4-4 mixed use district revision. Providence City Council would consider for approval an ordinance amending the code, the city code 10-4-4 titled mixed use district. Scarlett, why don't you give us an outline on this, and then we can discuss the motion.
So early on, about 10 years ago or so, Providence City wanted to have a mixed use district that would incorporate retail, residential, and light commercial as kind of a transition district, and also to help. We have so many cottage people with home businesses. Cottage industry is huge in Providence, and we felt like that perhaps people would like to do something similar. So we put the mixed use district into play. It really was before its time. There weren't very many takers. Now things have changed a little bit. There are people that are kind of interested in it, but our ordinance doesn't exactly meet the needs that we're looking at now. I'll just highlight a couple of the changes, and then you can certainly ask more questions. We are not requiring the percentage of retail like we did before. Generating sales tax dollars has changed a little bit. And some of these home businesses and population and things like that have kind of filled in some of that sales tax gap. We still want the retail businesses, and we hope to encourage those and hope these things work out well. But we also realize that if we want walkable communities, we want a place for people to work, not just shop. And so office space and things like that really do start to come into play. So the Planning Commission looked at that. And so now it says of the uses, retail, commercial, office, and residential development included in the development, no one use can be more than 50% of the entire development. And I used to say that whatever use you put in there had to be at least 20%. That was kind of problematic because it didn't say you have to have at least 20% residential or at least 20% retail. It said no one use has to, if you have a use, it has to be at least 20%. So we had some people that wanted to do the retail and they wanted to do an office or two to the side, but they had to do 20% office and they really didn't want to do that much. And so there were some reasons
why the planning commission looked at that. The percentage of each use is determined by the total square footage of each unit in the particular use. And then I'm looking on page 3 of 9 in the packet, and we kind of, again, tried to let people know what we were looking for in this mixed use area. We say permitted uses include, but are not limited to, single family and multifamily residential uses, entertainment, office, personal services such as business office, dental clinics, medical clinics, licensed professional offices, optical shops, pharmacies, studios for art, dance, drama, photography, etc., bakery, confectionery sales, barber, beauty shop, pet grooming, bank, financial, fitness center, and theater. Many of those uses are going to be sales tax generating, but like I said, Planning Commission felt it was important to make it more business friendly, to reach out to people, to be able to develop this a little bit better. And then if you go on to page 4, the other thing that we looked at was density. The density that the Planning Commission had talked about a few years ago, they felt like they wanted to look at a density of 30 units per net acre if you were doing horizontal building, which would mean that you weren't having businesses and retail business and residential in the same building. You would have an area where you had residential, and then you'd have an area where you had business. That's horizontal. If you're going to have business and residential in the same building, that's vertical. And that's really kind of what this ordinance is designed for, is to have that integrated mixed use feel and look. And so we did want to give a bump for that. So back when it was 30 units per net acre, for horizontal, they gave a bump of 10%. So it was went up to 30%. So it went up to 39 units per net acre, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you start looking at the sizes of our pieces, take the piece that's been zoned mixed district for ever since the mixed district went into play, that is behind AmSource, that's now being developed as Providence City Center. That piece is done at about 28 units, I think, per net acre. It's a horizontal one. And so, that the Planning Commission was pretty tight for what they felt like. And so the Planning Commission is recommending 25 units per net acre for horizontal design, and then a maximum of 33 units per net acre if they incorporate the vertical design. A couple other things that we were having some difficulty with. State code has changed a little bit over the years as far as public improvements and what we can and can't require bonding for, and security of performance and things like that. So we put a chapter in as when the state code changed this year. I looked through that and worked with the Planning Commission. We put a section in here that deals with what infrastructure minimum improvements will be required before building permit, what we feel like is would require a bond. Generally, we can't require a bond on private improvements, but if they do represent health, safety, or then we can bond those. And so we tried to make that more clear in here. The other thing that we tried to do, we asked for a common theme that reflected the heritage and community of Providence and traditional small town streetscapes. And that's really hard to answer what a common theme is. Probably if I ask for common themes coming from you, we'd have 6 different common themes. And so we felt like there were other ways to get what we wanted. And so the Planning Commission took that out. We've been having struggles. Developers have had struggles really trying to they can come in with great plans, but doing a theme has been a difficult thing to really achieve. And then we wanted to talk about parking, and we really wanted to encourage parking garages. They can be underground. We just wanted to make sure that people knew they had options for parking. And we feel like, the Planning Commission felt like, if we're going to have walkable, multimodal communities, we need to encourage bicycle, and we may need to make it bicycle friendly areas. And so we're requiring bicycle parking spaces in the mixed use areas. And the other thing that we were watching was the electric vehicles, and they're coming, they're there. And so in the mixed use, we are asking that we require electric vehicle charging stations, so many per, that they would provide 20% for the first 100 required off-street parking spaces for multi-unit dwellings and non-residential development, and then 5% more out above 100. So it's not, I don't think it's going to be a burden. I think it's going to be something that actually will be in demand at some point in time. And so because of that, we had to add quite a bit in about the electric vehicle charging stations. We also put the requirement in about mailboxes. The Postal Service is requiring, I just forgot the term. Clustered mailboxes. And so we've put that in to make sure that developer looks at that. And then we included that they have to follow the multifamily design standards when they're using multifamily. We had that before, but it just wasn't as strong as we wanted it to. And they talked about rooftop landscaping as part of the landscaping requirement. Planning Commission felt like rooftop landscaping is considered a private amenity and is not eligible for inclusion in the required landscaping percentage. They didn't feel like that was really something that everybody would have access to, like a park or something out there. So that was kind of their thought process. So those are the high points of the changes. And I really have to say the Planning Commission did a lot of work. I really thank them for all their time and effort they put into it. It was a good process.
Well, I just want to thank the Planning Commission, Kathleen. I know I'm the one that sent this back, hoping mainly looking for lower density in multifamily. And you did that plus the other things. So thank you for really diving into that. I think I'm happy with all of that.
Thank you.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, and maybe before you sit down, Scarlett.
Oh, sorry.
So maybe I should know this, and I've listened to some council meeting or some zoning meetings and sat on the zoning commission, but it was long enough that I don't remember. Like, do you start with verbiage, or does the verbiage all come from the planning commission, or is there a source for the new verbiage? I'm just
How we
trying
put
to
things
remember.
together. We pirate from other
Yeah, that's
communities. And the Planning Commission has ideas, city council members have ideas, Ryan put in ideas, other staff members. We really, actually, the Northwest gave us some really good ideas on the parking, on some of the landscaping requirements, the electric charging vehicles. And so we looked at theirs codes, looked at Logan's. We look at a lot of stuff. We start out generally with models from other cities or from the planning community, and then the Planning Commission takes it from there and makes it our own, puts our needs into it.
I'm excited about the clean energy and the bike and car electric options. I think that's really awesome. On page 3, where you list the types of services and then say see the attached list. The allowed uses, and then see the use chart for complete list of uses. I'm just wondering if it's redundant to have the examples.
It's just not comprehensive.
Yeah, it's not comprehensive, but do we need both?
Yes, because it's not comprehensive.
Okay.
Yeah, the use chart has the
Right.
uses in all of the zones. And so, and the other thing that we tried not to do, there are a couple places where we reiterated a few things in this, in the code, because we want those to stand out, but it's better to have things in one place so that when you're making amendments, you don't have to try and remember to amend the code in 3 or 4 places. So to have a really strong use chart in one place is better than taking a section and putting in here.
Right, which is why I was wondering if just the comprehensive list would be a better idea, but I'm fine with it the way it is. I just seemed like a pretty good list, but see the use chart for complete list.
Yeah, I apologize.
Redundant.
I misunderstood you. I thought you were
Oh,
asking
yeah.
to add the use chart.
No,
Okay.
no, the use chart is obviously extremely important.
Okay.
Nowadays, you've about got to have bicycle recharging too.
That
Actually, was
would be,
thinking of that.
that would be the multifamily, or I mean, the retail, little coffee shops and stuff we hope come, so.
I feel like one of the purposes on there, I don't know if this should be after we have a vote to start discussion. Well, you said that the purpose of having the mixed use was because we needed a transitional zone, but that's not listed in the purpose that it's for a transitional zone. It says it's there to stimulate economic development. And it needs, I feel like, some consideration for the transitional zone. I know in line 26 on that same page, on 3 of 9, it talks about compatibility of uses. I think there should be something that talks about the compatibility of zones, because if we're giving this to developers to look for their, to guide their designs, that if we're looking at to be transitional between zones, if they're transitioning from residential to commercial, they should make their layout reflect that the residential component should be adjacent to the residential component. Do you know what I'm saying? The commercial component should be laid out similarly.
Unless it's vertical, and that might make it difficult for them to, because then you couldn't separate the commercial, like the way Danny's doing it, where he's doing horizontal, he can put the commercial close to the entrance of the commercial area, the Alder Square area.
So that one, I think, could be argued in reverse also, because if you look at the roundabout, you have 3 corners that would be residential, right? If you flipped what Danny had designed.
Oh, yeah.
Because then his commercial would be
have-
next to the dentist offices, which is also commercial, right?
2 corners that are commercial. The east 2 corners, or
Well, I guess that
the east 2 corners
the
are
west
residential.
side of the roundabout is commercial and
Yeah.
the east side is residential.
Yeah. So, but I agree with the idea of transitioning and with trying to get the developers to make the communities be in harmony, so that, yes, the residential part works by residential areas, but we wouldn't want to cause people to not be able to use the vertical element of mixed use.
I think they can still consider the transitional nature between the zones. Because I think the vertical component contributes to that as well. I mean, I think that's what's been done in the LCR with the vineyard, is that the highest point is not next to traditional housing.
Right.
It transitions into the center of their design.
That was intentional. Yeah.
Right. So I think that something similar could be done in mixed use. So that if they want to use the vertical component, it's not adjacent to a traditional home.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I didn't see any language in here that
No,
guided that kind of thinking.
the planning commission didn't really go that direction with it.
So I don't know, maybe it's,
But we can,
too
the council certainly,
Maybe it's just one
Has input.
sentence in the objective. That's what I think. Just a simple sentence in the objective, and it was well stated when you started. Just stating
The
exactly what you
transitional-
said.
That needs to be transitional between the zone types. Or compatibility between the zone types.
So over the years, the concept of transition has come up in front of the council meeting. But nothing has ever come down that was definitive. And I think part of the reason is because some people would take it, if it was put in code, that it would be required. And we may not want to go down that path.
I think
So in other words, if they're single family traditional, the only thing you could build next to it is mixed use. And I don't think that's always where we want to go. I just want to make sure we're steering away from that. That we require transition zones or transition development.
so if we said the mixed use district is established to provide transition and stimulate economic development by providing a unique environment that combines. Does that work? To provide transition between zones and stimulate economic development? Does that work, or do you want more to the?
I just think we need to be pretty clear about the spirit of what we're trying to do. I don't know if you feel like that is enough language.
I've always felt that that the reason for this was to provide transition.
And I see it being able to work either place, and that the general plan and the zoning plan is established by the planning commission would outline transition areas. That only works if we tend to follow that plan and not deviate from it. But
We're trying.
But that's what that map in my mind is meant to do, is to lay out those transition areas.
I don't think we did that.
I think in planning and zoning, I think there are several areas where we tried to do that, but we've actually changed a couple of them since then. I mean, because I was there when we put that map together, and I know we've at least overridden a couple of those.
Yeah, and we do have a map that I've started utilizing more in the reports that go to the planning commission on the different subdivision proposals and stuff. And it's called the framework map that's in the general plan. And it's kind of it's not a parcel specific map. It's more of a general area map, but it shows the walkable nodes, the 5-minute, the 10-minute nodes, the commercial cores, shows possible conservation areas, things like that. And it's kind of done in a bubble format. And so it does kind of allude to some transition, that framework does. Or I think
just
put together
adding the
something.
word like you did, it includes it without making it too specific that anyone's feet are held to the fire using a transitional zone.
Kathleen wanted to comment.
Okay, I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that the purpose statement is a pretty soft statement. It doesn't require that, but it states our intent. So I don't think that would require somebody to make it a transition zone, a hard transition zone like we're talking about. I think it's going to say, here's the spirit of what we want to do.
Well, I mean, I know Scarlett just said that 10 years, 12 years ago, then when you brought this up and added this into the code, the purpose they had was transition. And that's not anywhere in this.
Let me say encourage rather than stimulate. Because then it's not definitive.
Well, the
Using
purpose is
term
generally softer language
right.
to say as a guideline as opposed to a hard and fast
Right.
rule. Just my opinion, not an attorney.
So you said you like that, encourage?
Yeah, I think that if that's really what we want to do is to encourage people to have a transition between traditional housing and commercial, I think they ought to pay attention to that instead of putting a big tall building right next to traditional family housing.
So I guess we need to make a motion.
So- Whoever makes a motion, if you want to change the language, include it in your motion. And I don't have a pen, but can somebody write down what Janelle says so we can read it back? And
I'm sure a recorder could do that.
Read slow.
you do that, Ty, for us.
Yeah, no, we'll listen to it later. We'll make
So
sure.
go ahead and make your motion.
Is that gonna be the only place that people wanna make adjustments? I'm good
We
with that.
entertain one motion at a time. Go back and adjust it.
All
You
right,
can
one
have
motion
another
at a
council
time.
member ask if you wouldn't mind amending your motion. You can vote on the motion, it can pass or fail.
Right, you
If
keep
it
track of
fails,
it
we
all.
can go back. and-
You could be here
I mean,
all
there's
night.
always
You keep track
iteration.
of it all then.
Go ahead, make your motion.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the ordinance. Ordinance number 2021-0012. The language adjusted on, do you want the page of the code or the page of the packet?
Probably be easier to say the page of the packet, since that's what people would be looking at when they.
So of 11 pages,
Well,
not the page
We
of
don't
the
know where
code.
it's going to end up, what page in the code. This is an ordinance, we can say what page of the ordinance we're changing.
Okay. On. Well, it's 5 of 11, which is it? 3 of 9 or 5 of 11?
It would probably be clearer to say 3 of 9, since somebody's flipping through it would see that.
Okay, page 3 of 9 of the city code, in the purpose to read, the mixed use district is established to encourage transition and stimulate economic development. Transition between zones, to encourage transition between zones and to stimulate economic development by, and then continue on if the language is written.
I'll second that.
You still writing? Can you read that back? Grab a microphone.
So now see the motion to approve ordinance 12 with language adjustment of page 3 of 9 of city code of mixed use district to establish that the mixed use district is established to encourage transition between zones. And, yeah, established to encourage transition between zones and to stimulate economic development by.
Yeah. Awesome.
Further comments or discussion? We have a motion on the table and a second motion. Councilmember Seeley, second from Councilmember Peck. I call for a vote on this? Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. All right. So the ordinance changes the mixed use district with the revisions. Item number 5, ordinance 013-2021, Providence City Code 10-8-9, design standards revision. The Providence City Council will consider for approval an ordinance amending City Code 10-8-9. Looks like there's an extra word there. Design standards for attached and multifamily residential. See that extra word there?
Title,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Title 10, Chapter 8, Section 9, but you don't need that there. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So again, this is a land use item. Scarlett, you want to give us an intro to this, and we'll go on to discussion.
So again, I'm just going to hit the highlights, and I'm also going to commend the Planning Commission. They put a lot of time and thought into this to try and clean some things up that we've learned while we've worked with developers doing some of the multifamily design. One of the things that we were having struggles with is when they would come in with some of the actual subdivision layout. Everybody is familiar with concept, preliminary, and final. So that wasn't difficult to get the developers to comply with concept, preliminary, and final for the overall subdividing of property. But when they were talking about just comparing, or when they were talking about the design standards and what level of design standard they needed to hand in with each of those steps, that got kind of confusing. And so as staff, we felt like it was important that it be right in the code that people mark what it is they're turning in, that the concept plan needs to be marked clearly concept. So that's the conceptual landscape plan or the conceptual parking plan. And then we know which plan we're looking at, because some of these we will get 6, 7, 8 resubmits, and you have 10, 15 pages with each resubmit. Even if you're doing it electronically, it does get confusing as to which plan is which. So I know it sounds kind of elementary, but we just felt it was important that they label their plans as to what they're turning in. So that's why we want all conceptual plans shall be clearly marked as conceptual, preliminary plans shall be clearly marked as preliminary. We also went into a little bit more detail about what the preliminary architectural plans needed to include. We were kind of maybe waiting too late in line to get some of the detail and getting it more final in construction and not getting enough upfront with preliminary. One of the things that the council had expressed concern the Planning Commission to was parking. And so in the preliminary parking plan, we're asking them to show the parking layout detailing resident parking, visitor parking, covered parking, bicycle parking, electrical vehicle charging stations, and include a data sheet demonstrating that the plan meets or exceeds the parking requirements for housing or per housing type. We felt like this was really important because some of these plans we were getting in as staff, we were literally counting parking places, and as staff, we were trying to determine what was really going on there. We need the developer to do their homework. We don't want to be designing it for them. They've got to come in, they've got to know that they've got the right number of parking spaces for each unit. We can verify, certainly, we will still be counting to make sure they did it right, but it needs to be the developer that gives us those data sheets that go along with their plans. And then again, the final plat, all plans need to be clearly marked final, excuse me. And then we didn't, this middle part, we seem to have gotten along with pretty good. And so we really didn't run into a lot of change until you get to page 7 of 10. And one of the things that people express concern about, the public has expressed it, council's expressed it, planning commissions expressed it, are landscaping. Are we requiring enough landscaping in these multifamily areas? And really, our previous ordinance really didn't require a percentage. We required setbacks and things between buildings, but we really didn't call out a percentage. And so we looked at, excuse me, different landscaping things. And one of the things we found that we thought was quite interesting were children play areas. And they're places specifically designed to enable children to play, such as a playground or park play or play park, and often contain recreational equipment such as slides, swings. The guideline we started with suggested a minimum of 800 square feet for the first 10 units. Thanks, Josh. And an additional 10 square feet per unit above 10. So if they had 11 units, they'd need 810 and so forth. We
Thank you
also
for
talked
adding that.
about,
That
we
makes me
all,
happy.
you said thank you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when I ran across that and showed it to Kathleen, we both thought it was a pretty cool idea. We also asked that they would have open space equal to or greater than 10% of the overall project area. The child's play area can be included in the open space percentage, but we are saying, in addition, you got to have at least 10% of your overall area dedicated to open space.
Does open space in this include like space between houses or like
Setbacks?
frontage in front of the house? Yeah, setbacks. Is that included in open space?
No, we have a definition for open
Oh, there's a
space.
definition.
Mhm. And then we talked again about the rooftop landscaping being a private amenity and not eligible for the open space.
Play area. We're in a concerning era of life. And I'm concerned children's play area needs to be not on the fringes of the development. Because we're getting weird people driving past but children's play areas doing weird things. And it's possibly not in here, but I am concerned that children's play areas ought to be an area that can be easily watched, maintained, and controlled by those people living in the area rather than others on the fringes. Now, that's just a thought that I have, but we got a weird population here.
But you know, also, it's really also up to parents. You can't just send your kids out to play in a townhome project, regardless of where it's at. I'm just saying, like, parents have to take responsibility, not necessarily like the city. I think if you start getting into telling people that would be difficult.
I don't know. I haven't given it that much thought. I just know we got some screwed up. I don't know. Maybe it's something we want to entertain in a future time.
Well, I can do some homework on that, and we can always amend the code. I mean, one of Ryan and one of our goals as staff is that we provide you with good code amendments that don't have to be amended really close in the near future. But sometimes something like this is going to take more time, and we would like to get this code in place sooner than later. So perhaps working on that and coming back with another amendment at a later date would be a good thing. That's totally up to you.
With this, Scarlett, wouldn't it go before planning with the site plan and there would be some review
Yes.
on site plans? So at that point, some of those concerns may be able to be looked at in the process, just as a thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's specific areas. If you have a quick drive-by next to a children's play area, that's concerning. If you have to walk into your children's play area, you may reduce some of the occasion to have problems.
So maybe you just say, like, with consideration, put something in there that says, with consideration to safety when placing these areas. And then hopefully the developer would catch that and be like, oh, yeah, safety.
Well, when we planning review, land review can
You could easily add wording like that, that children's play areas are places specifically designed to enable for children to play in a safe environment, such as a playground or park play. You could put something like that.
It should be located accordingly.
Located in a
Something to that
safe
effect.
area, maybe. I don't know.
something like that could should be incorporated. I think it has.
Well, I'm gonna, and I know you're not quite finished, but
Take a minute.
I have plenty to say about this one and some changes I would like to see. So we may have to send it back to the planning and zoning. Maybe not. But I just want to keep track of that, and then maybe it's enough that I don't know if we can fix it all tonight or make code amendments like next month or something. I don't know what you want to do.
We can, that's more what you guys want to do. We as staff will do whatever we need to support and reach the ultimate goal of getting an ordinance that you're comfortable with and that you feel like protects the city. So we can work on it. However, if you feel like you can make
We
changes.
can also approve it, as Scarlett mentioned, we want to get this in place. But we can also send a part of this back to the planning commission to work on after we've approved this and refine that part of this city code.
Yeah.
So it might only involve 2 sentences, but I think this is a significant improvement. Scarlett, I just looked at the city code. I'm trying to remember how far back when we had design standards. It
Just a couple of years.
was 2018, I think it was, but we had neighbors who were opposed to a development.
Very much so.
And they said, well, we're not happy with it. We'd only approve it if we had design standards, because everybody knows that if development goes in and it's multifamily, that builders are just going to put in junk. So we came up with design standards. We listened to what they said. So no vinyl siding.
This
We
doesn't
went
say
through
no
all of
vinyl
that.
siding.
Huh?
This doesn't say no vinyl siding on the side elevations.
No, it doesn't discuss the side elevations other
It only
than
talks about the
tops
front
of windows.
elevation.
Yeah, Christina's right. The percentages for decorative stone, things like that.
And that's where I have issue. So starting right off on the front elevations, I would like to remove the sentence that says fiber cement products such as hardy board or similar materials may be approved in place of brick or stone, which we've already seen that's happened.
You're on 5.
I'm on page 5.
Yeah.
I would like that sentence removed because as far as I'm concerned, the front of all of our multifamily should have some brick, rock, stone, or other masonry materials, and no exceptions.
All of it? Or?
I just want that sentence removed that says that hardy board may be approved in place of, because what you're going to see is exactly what's happening. They're bringing every single townhome unit and condo unit in with no rock or brick, saying the city approved it. Okay, and how are you going to say, oh, we approved it for Danny McFarland over here, because his doesn't have rock or brick on it. And we approved it for Visionary Homes over here, but we're not going to approve it for you over there. Right? So I think it's going to happen where they're always going to say, well, you did for them, you did for them. And those were accidents as far as I'm concerned. But you're going to cut hardboard siding is not, it's not that great of a product. In 10 years, hardboard siding is going to need to be painted again. And not just painted, but also recaulked and fixed up. It works, okay? And what's going to happen is the developer will say, we're going to do it because of the cost of living and the price of building right now. It's cheaper. Therefore, we want to get away with using it right now. But in 10 years, those homeowners associations, and that will be our citizens living there, they're going to have to foot the bills to redo the exteriors of their homes.
Or they'll just put it off for 20 years because that's what we do
And then we
on
have
our
a product.
exteriors.
So you're saying just remove that one
Remove
sentence.
that whole sentence. Now,
Second sentence.
As highlighted.
fiber cement products. Yes, remove that whole sentence. Next thing, it does not talk about side elevations. or rear elevations. And you got to know that on these townhome projects, the community, you've got roads in the rear and in the front. And over in the vineyard, it is hard to tell what is the front and what is the rear. Okay. And we're not even addressing rear elevations. So I think rear elevations need to be addressed and side elevations need to be addressed. And I think they need to not have vinyl siding. Although there is argument that vinyl siding will hold up as good as hardboard siding. But you put a dark vinyl siding on the product and it'll warp. So we need to address that, in my opinion, while I'm at it.
So if we don't want vinyl siding, we ought to repeat it on the side elevation as well as the rear.
Why not? There's some great products. I've been paying such close attention because I'm still so disgruntled about the whole condo townhome thing. There are some great products that have masonry on 3 sides. The next thing I would like to address, and I don't believe it's in the garage driveways. They're not deep enough to park a car. These condos back here that you can't park behind the garages. And the garages are so small, you can barely get a small car in there. And it creates a real parking problem. So I would like to consider asking the Planning Commission to look at driveway lengths. Or what's happening is they're pulling into they're parking behind the garage, and then the back of their car is hanging out over the sidewalk.
We addressed that in the life cycle. We can take the element of that and mimic it over here, because that was one thing I remember when we did the life cycle, they were the Planning Commission at that time was very adamant that the building be set back far enough that you can park in the garage, and then you can have a car parked in a driveway.
And then one more thing, and this is more of a comment, something that I would like implemented, and so I don't know where this goes, but I would like to see, and other communities do it, when you put in an amenity, a pool, a clubhouse, a park, etc. I believe that should go in with phase 1. We've got a pool and a clubhouse over here that has been sitting. People loiter over there, and no wonder people drive by and question what's happening. And a lot of communities are requiring that of developers, that goes in with phase 1. So I don't know where that would fit. I don't believe it fits in design standards, but that's all. I don't know, maybe we send it back with those things if you guys feel the same way I feel, because that's a lot to amend.
I think what you said has merit.
I think it's important too, and if the planning and zoning can take a look at it at their next meeting, then we could potentially approve it next month. I would rather do that than approve it part way, because I would rather not approve any developments in this zone until it's fully complete.
Kathleen.
I don't have any problem doing that. Let's get it right.
You have a planning meeting on the 28th, week from
Yes.
today?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have time to put it on the agenda. Reading through the rest of it, I'm very happy with, and it looks like, the other stuff came, the electric cars and all of that makes perfect sense. So can I make a motion that we send this back to planning and zoning?
I have a motion to send
Second.
back to planning and zoning. And I have a council member Eck. I have a second from council member.
He needs to do his job. We gotta let him do his job.
He did it.
We got to do as much. We got a reasonable amount of formality. So I have a motion and a second. Further discussion, comments?
I wanted to add one more thing. Well, 2 questions I had.
Okay, go ahead.
One is about on page 9 of 10, line 48. Why are the revisions not coming back to the council? Does this have to do with timing with the state laws? And line 52 at the end of that, if developer wants a revision, shouldn't they have the cost and the burden of notifying property owners rather than the planning commission notifying people? On page 9 of 10, the last item, number 4. If they want to revise their site plan, why should we have to notify homeowners? Why shouldn't the developer be responsible for that? Is there a reason?
Unless they
Pros
just,
or cons? I mean, I just feel like if they want the change, they should go through the expense and the effort to notify the people.
So one note, I believe, is that the planning commission, so the city council here is being taken out because the planning commission is the approver of that, I believe. So it's not coming, so that's a correction of inconsistent wording. But you're right, who notifies them? I think that's a valid point. We would have addresses and would have that, but we could certainly recover costs. I think that at some point we should talk about the fees that we charge. That is another discussion we should have. So
Is the reason that the planning commission did the notification, the fact that they make sure that the people that need to be notified are notified rather than, and maybe that could be taken care of by a list or something like that, does the state law require that the commission notify people? Because I know in all planning that I deal with that in College Ward, I get notified by the planning commission. I don't know why, but maybe that's a reason.
It depends on the type of change, what we have to notify people. If we're going under state code, those are for, generally they're for legislative events like rezones, annexations, actual code changes, not necessarily administrative events, which are site plan approvals and things like that. Because if they meet the code for site plan approval, we can't tell them no, we have to approve it. That's kind of the difference between the legislative and the administrative. It's the legislative, you can say no. And the administrative, you can certainly say no if they're not meeting the code, but if they're meeting the code, they get what the code says. That's pretty clear in state code. But we could do it 2 ways, and we do need to revisit fees on all of these, on all of our land use items, but we could incorporate the fee into it. Or we could say that they have to provide us with a list of their notification, who they notified.
I'm fine if it's more efficient with us having the right addresses of people, but I definitely think we should recoup the cost of doing extra work because of their request.
I'd rather city government do it. I'm not sure I want a developer doing it because every city they deal with has a different set of rules. So then they do it and then they didn't do it right and say, well, that's how Logan City does it. And so that's how we did it. I'd rather our people who do this live and breathe our code day in and day out are the ones that notify residents. I just.
And then we send them a bill.
No, it's included in our fees. As Ryan mentioned, we charge
Right,
developers
with
a
the
fee. And as long as that fee includes the cost of notices and things like that, that's how I think we ought to handle it.
at that point, if we can revisit our fees, then at that point, when they have a revision and it needs to go out, that's another application. They apply to have a revision, and that fee should include that, which at this point it doesn't. But when we double and triple the fees to make them in line with what the cost is, just keep in mind that we're including those kind of things.
So did we vote?
No, you did not vote yet.
No, we haven't voted. Janelle had another comment, so we held off the vote. Any other comments before I call for a
That's
vote?
all I wanted.
No, so I'm ready to vote. Okay, let's vote.
Any other comments? Janelle had a comment. We held up for vote. Anyone else? Okay, let's call for a vote. I have a motion and a second to send this back to planning commission for some revisions with advice from council members who had some pertinent comments they wanted to add. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed?
So where would we then?
All right. Pass unanimous.
really quick question.
Go ahead.
So where
Christine.
would we go? Where would we talk about these developments and their amenities being in, going or learning and see?
I've got
We're
a
not
note.
coming up with. But what part is that? What part of our process or ordinance or,
For putting it into phase one.
yeah,
Well, let us look into that. You've added, given us an assignment, let's take it back. We'll look at where that fits and we'll take that to planning and discuss and then come back. That's homework for us. And
I have a question too.
no,
Christina,
Joking.
so I love that you added the electric vehicle charging stations and the bicycle parking to these. I'm wondering if the planning and zoning can take that up in the commercial zone as well. Can we ask them to do that?
For new development, yeah.
Yes, for new, obviously. I just knew in new development, in commercial, I think the electrical charging and the bikes.
yes, and I think we ought to make everything consistent, actually.
Yes, so I
So that
would love to see that.
we're dealing with the same thing for everyone and not having to look at every single code to change just little stuff. Let's be consistent across the board. So,
Yeah, so those changes you've made in these other two zones, I'd
Yeah.
love to see them in commercial.
yeah, we can do that.
Just want to make a point of clarification. We don't have a planning and zoning commission.
Right, I know that.
We have a planning commission. It used to be that
Oh, habits die hard.
zoning was approved by the planning commission, by the planning and zoning commission. So it's been changed, and I don't know how far back that goes, Scarlett. But the final authority in this city is the city council. Every other part of the city is advisory. Our city staff is advisory. Our city manager is advisory. Our planning commission, our historic preservation commission are all advisory. The final authority is the city council. Okay. Planning commission. I had to correct Kathleen at one time too. A while
Well,
back.
you might have
A while
to, you
back.
might have to correct me every time I talk about it.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, item number 6, ordinance 011-2021, sewer impact fee. So we have a link to the ordinance. We have an impact or link to the analysis of the impact fee. Providence City Council will consider for an approval adopting an ordinance, adopting a sewer collection impact fee for the city's wastewater master plan. Again, as we talked about before, we do not have a impact fee for collection. I know Ryan addressed some of this. Ryan, I don't know if you want to go into any more detail on this, but there are a number of improvements to our collection system and upgrade. Some of them upgrades. Ryan mentioned some of it is on the Logan side of the highway that deals with the sewer line that transports water to the treatment plant. Anything else you want to add to
You
this,
want a
Ryan?
motion on this, Mayor?
Sorry,
You want a motion so we can discuss it?
we don't need a motion to discuss.
At that point, the maximum amount, as defined in here, it talks about certain assumptions and what it might take. At that point, the maximum is the $2,850 per ERU. So our Logan treatment impact fee is currently $2,433 and per ERU. So it would have, I mean, it would almost double that. But keep in mind the Logan one is a complete pass through, and we send that to the Logan directly. But we would be looking at some of the improvements, the increasing of the outfall line, connecting onto the west side. Some of that would be included in some of those eligible impact items. So anyway, it is part of our wastewater collection master plan. So anyway, and then the ordinance is drafted, and it mirrors where it comes, and it kind of mirrors off of our other impact fees, right? So anyway,
So again, this is to add additional capacity for intended, expected future growth.
yep, that's correct.
If we pass this, would it be effective for the very next building permit we have, or
I think we have an effective date. Don't we have an effective
it
date?
says that we'll vote on it today? Unless I missed something.
Yep.
Oh, effect dated June 19th? No, that's with Logan.
Well, that would be, yes. It would take effect after, if it was, after it was passed, it would take effect. We could have it effective 90 days. I think that's what the other one had. So we could you could set an effective date. Otherwise, if you don't set one, it becomes effective immediately.
I would want it to become effective immediately, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
At this point, it would come.
immediately as it's written.
Yeah.
Kathleen, you got it.
I'm speaking as a landowner. I recently had a big box store who wanted my property, but one of the things that kept them from getting my property and putting it there, they're going into Logan, is that the sewer was not compatible with what they needed. So we need to make these changes and get the fees so that we can make these, because we did lose. And that was one of the major reasons that we
So
lost
what's
it.
not compatible? What we have now, or
Right, what we have
or
now.
what we have planned?
No, what we have now. They didn't ask us what we have planned.
Okay.
They just said, this is what you have. It is not, it's not to our standards, and it's too far away, and it's at the wrong elevation. And so,
Did you tell them it was in the works?
yeah, but they didn't ask me until they went
Already
someplace else.
And that's
Okay,
why we don't have a target.
that's not Target.
Not target.
It's the other one. So anyway, I'm not gonna name names, but.
I'm just gonna keep guessing until you bluff.
She's already blushing.
So it's imperative that we get it fixed, because the property at the west of, the
So,
west part of the highway is so prime for that kind of stuff. And we lost it, and that was one of the major reasons we lost it.
so Ryan, let me ask you a question. One of the things about moving forward with sewering the other side of the highway, which involves tunneling underneath, is contingent upon this passing. This impact fee needs to be passed in order for you to pick up the phone and call the boring company and say, hey, we're ready to go.
Not necessarily, because I've already called the boring company to get prices. So I don't think that's exactly, and it is budgeted.
This is gonna go smooth.
Well, and we've already budgeted to be able to have the boring cost. We're going to move forward with that, with or without this, but this would help pay for it by. So.
All right. Any more questions on this? I'll call for a motion. Item number 6, ordinance 011-2021, the sewer impact fee. This is a collection.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 011-21.
Motion from
establishing
Councilman
sewer impact.
Paulson, do I have a second? Second from council members. Further discussion, comments, questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Ryan, go to work. Unanimous.
he's working.
He's
He's working.
He's working overtime. All right. Move on to item number 7. This is under agreements, contracts, bid awards, culinary water master plan RFP. We have a link to an exhibit from the city council review. and discuss proposal for the development of comprehensive culinary water master plan. This is a discussion of the proposals. Ryan sent out the 3 proposals we got. Ryan, you want to give us a?
Yeah, we met as a committee as we have in the past on a lot of these, in order to have greater depth from a broad range. We had 2 council members meet with our committee, Public Works Director Rob and I, and our GIS specialist. So the 5 of us reviewed in depth each proposal, and we had some great proposals, some firms we've worked with in the past, some new, or one new, so Epic, and we have a representative from Epic here, and we appreciate they're new in the area, and so we hope that we can work together in the future at some point. But at this point, the committee is recommending that the council approve Sunrise Engineering's proposal for that water master plan. The other one was Horrocks Engineering. So we had Horrocks Engineering, Epic, and Sunrise. And for a number of reasons, their proposal came very well, and the time frame, that was one of the issues. We do have, this is a pressing one with some of the other things that are going on, and they were able to accomplish it in a little quicker time frame than some of the others. And there were a lot of different issues. And Brent, Janelle, if you have any comments on the process, each of you have gone through this process. I think we go fairly deep in depth into the discussion of these proposals and take it very serious in our selection. So anyway, that is what the voice of the group was to award to Sunrise Engineering for this plan.
What Ryan just said, I think we did a very in-depth scoring on the various components of the proposals comparison, and I think we were pleased by the applicants, but on the other hand, it did boil out that Sunrise Engineering scored just a little bit higher, and we felt like it was better to go with.
Ren, remind me, I read through those. Is that the 87,000 or the 84?
87.
That was 87. Okay, great.
Yep. And keep in mind, up to 45,000 is covered by our grant, which we're happy for from the Community Impact Board. So
I like that proposal the best myself.
Okay.
I knew that 2 of those are pretty comparable in cost, but I just thought that one, I like comparable cities they've done work for.
Ryan, are you asking us to vote to approve?
yes,
Because this says discussion.
discussion and acceptance of the committee's. So it would be a bid award. It would be discussion and bid award.
It only says we'll review and discuss. Did we mess up the agenda?
It does say that we'll review and discuss.
What's that?
It does say, you are correct. It does say we'll review and discuss. So it does not actually say that we take action, but
So we can't take action.
Oh, there's a heading that says bid award.
and we are awarding a bid.
Agreements, contract, this is a subtitle.
If we can't take action, can we call an online meeting, and
As long as we notice it.
as long as we notice it, and just do that after we notice it so that we can get this going? Right?
That's a good question. I would say that at this point, moving forward with it, it's a budgeted expense. And so whether it requires council action or not, we have traditionally brought it here for the purposes of advice and consent. But I would say it's a budgeted expense, and we proceed with budgeted expenses without you voting on each one. If you, as budgeted items, if it's within the budgeted expenditures.
Josh, you may not have known specifically specifically, but if we talked about we're putting this in the budget because we anticipate issuing a contract for streets, issuing a contract for impact fee analysis, that type of thing, and we have a ballpark as to what we're putting in there, then we don't need you to specifically approve that budget amount again. We can go forward under that guise.
So then you don't need our approval at all, then.
But I sure like it.
Informally, that's not correct.
Can we just verify what we actually, our specific amount was in the budget?
The budget was 90,000. We came in under budget.
Well, we're under budget because we got grant money.
No.
We're under budget even farther because of that, because the grant wasn't budgeted as revenue, but the budget was 90,000, and this does come in below the budget.
Potentially violating that procedure, and if someone want to complain, that'd be a problem. You're saying you don't need our vote, and it's more formality. I would think we wouldn't vote, and we've advised you, and then it goes forward. So I don't.
I will hear the advice and move forward then. Okay. Any opposition?
Sounds great.
Okay, we will move forward in that direction. That is my report.
My only concern, Brian,
Yep.
is some other issue comes up in the future that I can't fathom off the top of my head what it might be, that we run into a problem. We didn't do the formal notice and all that.
Let's move on.
No, I'm not gonna move on. I just want to make sure we're clear, we're doing it right. And what would our city attorney say?
I have to reach out, but we can add it on. I don't think they're starting, if I look at their start period. So they're not set to start until September 1st. So we could easily bring it back for a vote if that was what you'd like, and that would be
I
just fine.
think you ask the attorney, and if there's no problem, then we're good. If he says there's a problem, then we do an online notice meeting. And
Okay.
so they can still start September 1st.
Okay.
I actually think it'd be better to do it in the next meeting than an online meeting.
That's fine.
Yeah,
If he
I agree.
advises.
If so advised by the,
Yeah.
okay. We'll check with
Because
him.
up to this point, we've always had it on any bid like this, no matter what it was, for council approval.
Okay.
Okay. Let us know what Chad says.
Will do.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. No other plans or business, so we're down to council votes and, oh gosh, it's 8:30.
Report.
Yeah, council reports. Okay, who wants to go first? Karen?
I can, I've got a little, actually, my list is kind of long. So I'm going to ask the mayor to put the youth council applications are open in the newsletter, and I sent you a write-up for that. But we had such a great youth council last year, and anticipate that most, if not all of them, will return, and we'll continue doing similar activities. The youth council is planning the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and they had a hearty discussion. I asked them for classics that would be appropriate for families, and it was a really fun discussion, and I feel like I should watch them all again. I had asked Brian, one thing that I feel that the citizens of Providence are not hearing our story enough, or understanding that we're listening to them. And so one thing I had asked for was to do a video series for fiber to give people the very basics, not technical, really simple. And so he and I worked on that. I sent the scripts out for feedback and heard back from Janelle. And those, we got the links for those today. And so those should be posted and shared soon. The videos.
Would you like us to play one?
Did you
Yes.
make the video?
Yes.
She went through the
Yeah, so I gave you the scripts. Everyone had an opportunity. I sent it to you twice.
I don't remember seeing it either.
It's been a while because I worked on them for a while, but I felt very strongly that people needed to hear from the council. And Janelle considered going with me, can hear from the council about fiber and what to expect when it came to their house and what it would look like on the streets. And so those videos are done. And I hope you all like them. It was something that I felt really strong about. Ryan has the link and they just came through today, but that's something that I really wanted to do. And I want to focus more on helping the citizens to know that we are listening and that we're here to serve them, that we don't have pet projects in our pocket, but we are, our group of people that we're trying to stroke, but we are trying to do what's best for them. And so I have been trying to think of ways to do that. And I think that as a council, maybe we could consider, I know we've put, Janelle's done a lot and Josh of writing for the newsletter, but I've even thought that maybe we should have a section in the newsletter that recaps very in basic terms, not like minutes, but what's been coming up on the agenda and why it's important to us and how we're applying the things that that we hear from them. So just in brainstorming, I don't know that I should write that every time, but if people are if the council's interested, maybe we could help people to hear us more if we do something like that.
Which one of four? Pick a number between 1 and 4 that you'd like to listen to.
Well, let's start at the beginning. It's the shortest one.
Short sounds good.
That's an awesome thumbnail. So I've always got my mouth open, right? Becoming an essential utility in a technology-driven world. It has become the new gateway that takes us to classrooms, work, healthcare, and around the world. Fiber is faster, more reliable, and more secure than other internet options currently available, which is why Providence will be deploying a citywide fiber optic network to benefit every home and business. With fiber in place, the opportunities for job creation and economic growth are endless. Soon, every resident will have access to gigabit internet speeds while still maintaining the freedom to choose an internet service provider. The process to get fiber to everyone will take some time, and we understand you may have questions about what to expect and how to get started. So we've created videos and a web page to answer your questions. For more details, visit us online at providencecity.com/fiber. Totally memorized. All 4 videos. Wow. No, it was a prompter. I did practice reading them.
You want to see one more?
Yeah. Always want the action scene. Did you hear
All right.
stunts? Is what I'm
All right, Josh,
Every
pick a
step.
number between 2 and 4.
I'll go with 4. Okay.
This is the gigabit.
These are posted on the website.
Not yet.
The-
It just came in today. By now, you're aware that fiber internet, the most advanced broadband technology in the world, is coming to Providence. Once construction is complete and your installation has taken place, the final step in getting connected is through your chosen internet service provider, commonly called the ISP. Since this fiber infrastructure will be publicly owned, it is considered open access, meaning that any internet service provider can utilize it, and you'll have the option to select a provider. The fiber infrastructure will allow your provider to deliver speeds up to 1 gigabit per second for similar or even lower costs than what you're currently experiencing. Here's how it will work. Once fiber is delivered to your home or business, as explained in the previous video, you'll select your bandwidth package
and your internet service provider through a web portal. The fiber will be a utility provided by the city, so you'll automatically receive the baseline speed tier for the baseline price of $10 per month. However, in most cases, households that run more than one device at a time will require more than the baseline. So you'll have the option to upgrade to higher speeds for an additional cost at the same portal where you'll be choosing your provider. Keep in mind that your provider is utilizing infrastructure that is publicly owned. So ultimately, if you upgrade past the baseline speed, you'll pay your provider a portion of your total internet bill, and the remaining will be paid to the city for the infrastructure. Although your internet bill will now have two parts, it is anticipated that your total internet bill will be similar or less than what you're currently paying. Yet, you'll receive superior internet speed and bandwidth. After you're connected to fiber and subscribe to a provider, questions can be directed to the provider you select or to the city's network operator. For more detailed information, visit providencecity.com/fiber.
Seriously, these are so good, and I can't believe you did that. And I don't remember getting an email from you, so I'm
It was
sorry.
just an invitation to edit through Google Docs. That's what I sent everyone.
Well, that really is going above and beyond.
I just
So
felt
thank
like it
you.
was. Plus, they're great. I
They're
did.
great.
Actually, I only took 3 shirts and did 4 videos, so there's a.
It's too bad we didn't have this a year ago, then I would understand what we were doing.
I'd like to be
And
able
the-
to download
the
these to my phone so that when someone asks me a question, I can just text them.
The second video, I addressed the 3 main questions that I get. Why are we getting involved in fiber? Why $10 to everyone? And another question. And I think it will be helpful. I think people will be like, oh, okay. And I feel like with so many things, people just don't see the big picture. And so they think we're not listening or we don't care. So that was the goal with that. So, and Ryan made it happen, and he flew me and my boys to Roosevelt, which was really fun for me.
Can you send them out in an email that we can like save to our phones? I guess you'll just send it out.
Yeah, we're going to put it out through our social media and our website, and we will have it so that you can share and pass it around. We'd love to have everybody be able to view these, and we will get them out to
Maybe
you.
we should have
Sure.
them for the movie in the park.
That will be playing until it's time for the movie,
a
just
commercial,
on
like a
service.
commercial.
So it is a little embarrassing, but my mom and my husband thought I was cute, so. So I won't ask anyone else. Because it is embarrassing.
I think the other cities in Cache Valley are going to
Yeah, and why isn't this in
Extremely
the Herald
envious.
Journal? Like, why aren't we? I
We'd
don't know
have
why
that
people aren't talking
discussion.
about
We'd have
fiber.
to pay for advertising for them to put in what we want them to put in, or else they might just put in whatever the heck they want, and it may not be awesome. So 2 more things. Sorry that my list is long. I just wanted to bring up that the purchasing of park property and maybe the option of going into an executive session. I have some questions about that and the 2 different things that have been with park property that have come up.
Yeah, talking about purchasing of property, especially the pricing would need to be discussed in a closed session. And I'm planning that if we can go to a closed session at some point.
Okay, so I'll try not to take too much longer so we can go into an executive session to talk about park property. But there's one other thing that I do not want to go head to head with staff about, but I want to bring up in city council, and that if it's our first assignment as a council to ensure the safety of citizens, CCID has come multiple times with data showing traffic and children to merit some changes and some city support before and after school. As of today, River Heights has changed their safe route, or is working on changing their safe route to school plan so that CCID and River Heights can use the same crosswalk and crossing guard across 100 and First West and Spring Creek. So that will be a big thing. But that will, while painting crews are out, if that goes through with River Heights, and according to the email that was received, they're moving forward with making that change. That crosswalk would need to change position.
At this point, there's a crosswalk at 280
Right, and not Spring Creek.
and not, well, there's a crossing at Spring Creek, right?
Crosswalk is at 280 North, and there's no sidewalk from River Heights to Spring Creek Parkway on the west side of 100 West.
So they'll change their route to not go down 100 West, but to go around like on
That would be
Bluff Street, go down Bluff Street and then go down Spring Creek, so that both River Heights and CCID can utilize the same sidewalks and crossing guards.
I haven't seen that plan, have you?
And I have not seen
No,
that
it's
either.
today that they emailed.
And so we kind of
And said
would
they're
need to
working
know
on it.
some timelines related to that as far as this construction season goes. There's also electrical involved when it comes to those school flashing lights that are currently properly placed at 280 North. So they need to get our staff in that loop if there's going to be a change that's truly affects what we need to be looking at a more faster pace than what we were, because we have had a lot of discussions with the charter school, and we have taken it very, very seriously, and it's highly on our radar as far as making changes with those crossing guards and those signs and the crosswalks and all that good stuff. And so if River Heights is doing something that's directly going to affect our safe routes plan, we really ought to be in that same loop.
Okay, and it was River Heights that sent the email today that they're going to move. They sent it to Sarah at CCID, and she sent it to me this afternoon, that they're going to go ahead and work on making that change.
And is that plan B to asking us to pay for crossing guards, that request that came in?
That's
Well,
why
they're like,
Well, I'm just wondering, there was radio silence on that one. Is this the alternate plan?
well, the
I think
staff,
this is an efficient option because then
Oh,
we
I
have
agree,
to
it's
have
more
multiple
efficient.
crossing
I agree,
guards
it's
in
more
different
efficient. I'm just
places
wondering,
on
is
the
that,
same
was that
street.
kind of the idea?
yes,
I can disregard the previous inquiry about paying for crossing guards.
right, although they have been using school staff as a crossing guard at Bluff Street, and I think that still has merit. I feel like they have data to show that there's enough traffic and enough students.
very curious. That's a very big conversation, and maybe this is the right spot to talk about some of that data and how those routes truly work. The Bluff Street, we're talking crossing Bluff Street east to west. And River Heights is crossing Spring Creek Parkway to get to their school, or we're crossing Spring Creek Parkway to get to River Heights Elementary. At Bluff Street, is that what I'm hearing?
No.
We're going to try to reroute our children to head to River Heights Elementary by going down 280, and there's some logistics as to where the kids in Providence are coming from to get to that elementary school in River Heights.
They're coming from that same neighborhood because they were crossing 100 West at 280 North.
280 North.
280 North.
And that was
But that's the
before
same
Spring Creek was
neighborhood
in.
that is surrounding CCID. Because the neighborhood that is on the east side of 100 West goes to Providence, and they come up First East and cross past that church.
And
I think this needs to be a bigger discussion
big discussion with the planners.
at a different time. This was really off subject.
But
I will-
it's good that Carrie brought it to the attention.
It comes as a report, a council report, because partly because I have children at CCID, so they're reaching out to me because they felt like they were unheard by staff and they were very unhappy with the appointment that they had because they felt like their needs were not communicated or heard. And so I would like to make sure that they are heard. And if safety is the concern of the council, then I would like to make sure they're heard.
And I can appreciate that. And I feel bad that there's somebody that didn't feel that they were heard.
All of them.
Um,
And there were some condescending remarks that they've shared with me that I'm not very happy with. So I just want the council to be aware and that I would like to make that a priority to look at that.
I will tell you that I did call a contractor and have looked at getting the sidewalk put in from 280 North to Spring Creek Parkway and have not received a response, but I have called. But there is a cement shortage and there is a working labor shortage on flat work. There is a difficulty. We did support River Heights when they applied for Safe Routes to School to put in a sidewalk there. So we have tried to move that. I've already talked to the crossing guards about the discussion about moving. So just because there isn't necessarily a response doesn't mean that there's silence.
And I think even without that sidewalk, even ever going in, I think that adjustments can be made that will be good for CCID and not hurt River Heights in any way.
Ryan, is that the section that we talked about?
Yes, I have taken Blacksmith Fork President by the area as well in order to show and to see if they would evaluate their drainage of the area. Yes.
That's all.
Next. Josh,
My time to carry.
you
Me
did?
too.
Or
I don't have anything.
Christina? anything?
Nope.
I just have one thing. I attended a funeral today for a very close friend, former Providence City employee, Brian Cox. He passed away on the 13th, and it was very touching. That's it.
Anything I have is about painting of roads, so I'll just email staff about it.
Great. Let us know.
All right. Did you say we had something to?
We do have a closed session, but before we go, I did reach out to Chad and just texted him while we were here and asked him about the master planning. And he says, yes, no problem on his end to move forward with the consultant. So I thought I'd report back. Correct.
Okay, we're good.
We're good to move forward if you are. So
We have that on the record that
yes, the city attorney responded and told me it was okay.
All right. A motion to go into executive session.
I will go into executive session.
Motion from council member. Second from council member Seeley. All in favor of going into executive session? Any opposed? Executive session. Anybody want to take a break? It's just before 9.
Let's go. We can be done by 9.
Anybody want to?
9:15. Give me a half hour.
Take a break.
Thank you all for attending. Really appreciate it.
Yes, Brian. Beekeeper guy. 58 years old. Stage 4 cancer. Kidneys, liver, lungs.